What is up, guys? Welcome back to another Gwent video. It's been a little while. It's been a hot minute. We're just in that phase where it feels just less interesting to play the game because there's new stuff coming very soon. So, I'd rather just take like a week or two off just to recharge for when the expansion hits, and hopefully it's a good one. So far, at the time of recording this, we've seen the first two factions. I'm positive. I'm definitely positive towards the general approach that they're taking. There are archetypes that we know are being supported, and at least one that I suspect may be supported. We'll get to that tomorrow when we get the Skellige reveals. So we're going to start with the Northern Realms reveals. And what NR is doing this time around is, this whole boosting cards in your deck type of game plan. We've seen this before. Erlen boosts every unit in your deck by 1. The Kersaran, the Witcher location, boosts a unit in your deck by 3. And yeah, Dandelion has actually 2 separate deck boosting abilities on him. And there's probably other stuff that I'm not thinking of. All God Offering, for looking at neutrals. So that's mainly what they're doing. Mutagenerator, how could I forget? Mutagenerator, that's the big one. So we're getting some new cards having to do with Sigismund Dijkstra, who is obviously a card that you'll be seeing in this video. And we're going to start off with Drakenborg, which I did a quick Google. It's like this is the town or the city where Dijkstra is. It's his crib. So it's a new location, which I am very excited about. I am a sucker for locations. I was hoping that each faction would get one, but by now I know that monsters are not getting one. While I do appreciate the asymmetrical design, just because one faction gets a location doesn't mean they have to force a location into every faction. It still would have been nice to see more locations, just because I'm a huge fan of these cards. But Drakenborg is a 9 provision location. Deploy, summon a unit from your deck to this row, lock it, and remove its boost. Order, boost an ally unit by 0, increase this value by the amount of boost that was removed. This is an interesting card. I've seen, there are people who are actually calling this broken and insane in combination with Dwimviandra. I realize now this is actually a terrible card to start off on, because a lot of the potential for this card is very based on the other cards that I'll be looking at, so maybe we'll just come back to this one. I think just having this in mind as we go forward, I think that's nice. It was okay to start with this. It's okay. So on the surface, it's like a royal decree, but it summons instead of plays, and it does a weird thing with the boost, and it does the lock, and it seems terrible. There are cards that the lock could be actually beneficial. There are obviously ways to circumvent the lock, purify. And again, one of the other cards we'll be looking at, so we're just going to move on, because Drakenborg is going to make a lot more sense once we get into these other cards. Except for this one. These are not in any particular order, just the order they were saved into my folder. Redanian Agent. A 4/4 with Veil. Order, boost a unit in your deck by 1. Cooldown 2. Very, very tame design. And tame is a term that so far I feel is very appropriate for this card drop. And it's also a term I'm happy to describe it with, because things in recent card drops have been really wacky, really crazy. Card abilities as long as essays, and just all sorts of wacky shit going on. And it's nice to go back to something like very simple. Like this just does a 1-point thing every other turn. It's a 4/4. It's very basic. By itself, probably terrible. Like this, without any of the other new cards here, probably not a great card. I mean, carryover, but then again, it's really low tempo. Not that hard to deal with. It has Veil, so it doesn't get locked, which is good. But it doesn't provide points to the board. It's relatively slow, even for a 4-provision engine. But the carryover, you know. But I think we're just going to move on, because he is actually a very good cheap enabler for not this card. Wow, the order could not have been worse. But you know what? We're going to stick with it, because this is what Gwent is about. Things going straight to hell, and then you just got to deal with it. Just got to deal with it. Redanian Secret Service. A 1/6. Zeal Order Purify an allied unit. If you do not control Redanian Secret Service, when an allied unit gains a status, summon self from your deck to its row. Okay. It's a Purify card. It's a Thinning card. It actually costs 6 provisions. This is a card that I feel like there was a time period, not too long ago, where I feel like a card like this would initially cost 5 and then they would bump it up to 6. It is really nice to see them just take it straight to 6. This is an auto thinner. As long as you gain a status, if you can just control and make sure that you gain a status. This is a very cheap auto thinning card, you know, similar to Roach and Knickers, in that it comes out on its own. And it even has a Purify. Like, this is such a good tech against locks. NR will no longer fear Nilfgaard nearly as much. It's a really cool card. And it works really good with Drakenborg, because you play Drakenborg, you summon, you know, whatever unit you want, right? It gets locked. And if you don't have a Redanian Secret Service, one of them will pop out of your deck, and you can unlock the thing. So now, Drakenborg it's not just summoning a unit and then locking it and then taking the boosts away and blah 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 blah. It's actually summoning a unit and then thinning your deck again. With the Redanian Secret Service, you can unlock your unit, and you just summoned a unit. An unlocked unit. It's a roundabout way of doing it, but that's actually the type of design that I like. Like, just adding in like those extra steps, but it just like, it makes sense. Like, it's fun. Like Drakenborg just summoning an unlocked unit versus Drakenborg summoning a unit and locking it, and then Redanian Secret Service coming out and you can unlock it. That's just cooler. That's just more fun. It's more convoluted, but it's more thinning. And it is an extra point. And it's fun. It's just fun. Now, this you know, people have mentioned the deck boosting benefits of this card. You know, if this does get boosted by an Airland, or if you're playing a Muted Generator with 6 provision cards, then, you know, this could rack up some boosts before coming out. Like, I don't know how relevant that's going to be. 6 is not really a provision cost. NR hits a lot, except for with Reaver Hunters, but you play them on melee row, so they can't stack up carryover in your deck with Muted Generator. So I don't think that is super relevant. But of course, any buffs that would go on this, you know, you are ensured that you will get, because she will pop out your deck. But it's just a good card. Here's the thing. The average provision cost of a card in your deck is around 6.6, 6.7. You know, just taking the total provisions, divided by 25 cards, that's the average cost. So whenever something cheaper than 6.6, 6.7 Whenever that is thinned out of your deck, you actually increase the average provision cost of the rest of your cards. This costing 6. And being an auto thinner, like a free thinner, as long as you get a status somehow. That's a good cost. That's a really good cost. You have higher cost cards that are still good because they add more tempo to the board. You know, like Roach costs 9, but she adds 4 points to your board, which is actually really helpful for tempo. And, you know, more or less offsets that provision difference there, but this just costs 6. So it being just 1 point, but also a Purify, it's really good. It's really good. This card is really good, and it's really cool. It's really cool. And again, I just want to really put emphasis on the fact that I love that this costs 6. There was a time where I feel like this could have been introduced as a 5 provision card, and I think that would have been just way too good. Like bronze thinning cards, you gotta be careful with those. I think 6 provision is fine because the power level of a 6 provision bronze has been established as pretty high. High enough that you can add in like thinning effects. And 6 provisions is really... If you're going to put a 6 provision card in your deck, like it's got to be a card that you want. Like you are putting in resources into that card. And you're just in a different way than you do with 5 provision cards. And you don't do it at all with 4 provision cards. It's just 6 is where you start feeling like, okay, if I'm going to pay provisions for this card, like I really got to need it. Because that's an actual cost. And I think this is going to be worth 6 provisions. And it's going to be good. Hopefully not OP. I don't see how this could be OP. It's just... I don't see that. But it's going to be good. And lastly, we have the man himself making a return since beta. Sigismund Dijkstra. Yes, this is Siggy Raven, however you want to say it, from Syndicate. But before he went to Syndicate, he was an NR card. He was a Northern Realms related person. A 4 for 12. You know, I do love 12 provisions. That is my preferred top-end cost, so seeing a 12 is great. Order, play a boosted unit from your deck. While in deck, whenever this unit receives a boost from other abilities, boost self by the same amount. I think that's really where it's going to shine, because that order by itself is not great. I mean, clearly, for 9 provisions, you can just play any unit from your deck with World Decree. Adding 3 provisions and putting it on an order effect without built-in zeal, restricting it to boosted units, and just giving it a 4-point body, that's not great. But it's that engine? It's an engine. Pseudo sort of engine effect. Any deck boost you put on Dijkstra is doubled. Kersaran boosting him by 3, that's suddenly boosting by 6. That's pretty good. All God boosting it by 2, you're boosting it by 4. It's just a neat way to just take those subtle boosts and turn them into just a little bit more points. And you know, we had the Redanian agent. That was actually his name. I'm a genius. So that 1 boost every other turn turns into 2 points every other turn, which is suddenly a much better rate for a 4 provision card. And yeah, Dijkstra doubling a little bit of a buff, a little bit of buffs, and then coming down. You're always gonna want to use Inspired Zeal with this, right? I don't see a lot of people mentioning that, but this is an order effect that you need it to go off. And there's only a select few matchups where you can even consider leaving him unzealed on the board for a turn. And if he's racking up boosts while in the deck, like, yes, that protects him from certain things, but it also makes him even juicier as a heatwave target or Curse of Corruption. And even if it just gets locked, I mean, you do have a little bit of a backup plan for locks, but there's a good chance those will be used earlier. Like, there are several ways. I think all the factions can force out your Redanian Secret Services as soon as possible, because they will know that you have them, and then they're just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna get them out sooner rather than later, so they won't get in my way if I do hunt to lock something, poison something. So it's an order effect that you're gonna want to kick it off with zeal every time. That's just the way it is. Leaving it on the board, if he does survive, then you do suddenly have the opportunity to play 2 cards in 1 turn. A very powerful thing, potentially, that has been problematic in the past, but as we have seen, like, if it's behind a big enough restriction, like a 12 provision card living a turn without getting heat waved, I'd say that's a big enough condition. When it's behind a condition like that, it's not nearly as problematic. Besides, I don't think there's a whole lot NR could do. Like, yes, you could play Siege, and then Dijkstra could pull a boosted Siege engine to immediately trigger Chapter 1. Who even cares anymore about instantly triggering Chapter 1 of scenarios? Who cares? So I don't think there's anything too crazy you can do with this. But a crazy thing you could do with a Drakenborg is you boost Dijkstra by a whole lot. You know, he doubles down on all your boosts. You Drakenborg him out. Stack those boosts into the location itself. Siggy goes to 4 power, but you get a Secret Service agent to unlock him. Then you can give him Zeal. You can play a thing. And you have potentially really big boost stacked up on your Drakenborg. Is that the name? It sounds wrong. It's right, Drakenborg. You got a really big boost stacked up on the Drakenborg, which you can use as carryover. You can use it as... You can use it with Dwimviandra, who resets the order effect of an allied location. That's something you could do. And obviously, like, if Dijkstra gets boosted by 10, like, you boost him by 5, he boosts himself by 5, you do the Drakenborg thing and you stack up 10 boost on that thing, then each Dwimviandra could play for 14 points. Which, honestly, it's not that crazy. Especially considering the first use of the order, the boost that you're giving them, the 10 boost, you know, hypothetical 10 boost. Those are points that you've already worked for. The location is not contributing those points to the board. They just took it from a card where you manually did the labor. You did the work. You put in the work, put those boosts on the card, Drakenborg takes it away, and then gives it back. So initially, Drakenborg, is it even worth it? And the thing is, yes, Drakenborg is resilient. You can have it as carryover. But, I mean, you're boosting cards in your deck. It's still carryover. So you're not even getting that much utility. And, you know, these are the reasons why a lot of people are saying Drakenborg is actually underwhelming. And they could be right. Like, outside of Dwimviandra combinations, is it underwhelming? It could be. It could be. You know, it should be mentioned that it is a devotion tutor, devotion-friendly tutor. for NR. You know, they don't have as many deploy effects as a lot of other factions because, you know, they are more about the orders. So, like, there are a lot of cards that you can basically just tutor with Drakenborg, including Dijkstra. You know, you can't grab him with Amphibious Assault, but if you were to ever make a Devotion deck with Dijkstra, I don't know why you would ever do that, but if you were to do it, you now have a tutor for him. So I'm intrigued by Drakenborg. You know, looking forward to see how that card actually plays out in terms of power level. You know, as with all cards, I want it to be playable, but not too good. And it's an interesting card for sure. And yeah, I think that does it for the NR cards. Again, a term that I am happy to be able to use here, and this was luckily also the case for the Monsters card. Hope this trend continues. That word is tame. Like, these cards, they just seem like the designs are almost nostalgic, especially like Redanian Agent. Like, the design structure is very nostalgic because it reminds me of the way Gwent cards were designed like 2 or 3 years ago. And on one hand, that does make me a little bit concerned that some of these cards are actually not going to be good enough. But like just looking at them now, like in a vacuum, obviously not having tested them at all, nobody has tested them. Not even the developers, allegedly. That's a joke. I'm sure they test them. But yeah, we haven't tested them. We haven't seen these cards in action. But just looking at them, like, they seem good enough. But again, they're so tame. They're so down to earth. And I'm very happy to see it. Like, this is what I want. This is what I want for the whole game. I'm just worried that some of the other recent stuff is just too wacky for anything like this to be viable. I think Secret Service is definitely going to be playable. I think Dijkstra does enough for like setting up maybe a slightly new archetype, new playstyle, and he's could be like a really powerful play. So I think he's going to be playable. This is definitely playable. This is a 4 provision card, so like even if it's playable, you're still gonna aim to not play it a lot of the time. Drakenborg, I hope is playable, but I can definitely see why some people think that it's gonna suck. But I think it's gonna be alright. I'm a big fan of these cards. I really am. They're not gonna be the first thing I try out. Like, I'm already more intrigued by Monsters, and I'm always more intrigued by Skellige. So we will not be starting off with this, but you know, I look forward to see what people do with this, and then trying to make up something of my own. So yeah, that does it for the new NR cards. Setting the bar pretty low in terms of wackiness, but that is exactly what I love to see. And I hope you agree. I mean, I hope everybody is, you know, finding these cards interesting, thinking that they're going to be fun. There's nothing really like that seems obviously broken, like obviously absurd and too crazy, too over the top. So I'm hopeful. Then again, I'm always hopeful, and I'm often disappointed, but this time I'm really hopeful. You know, I'm really hopeful for these final 3 card drops to just be perfect. A perfect send-off to the game as we go into Gwentfinity and beyond. I wish I'd planned that. I would have made it sound more epic. But I literally came up with that in the middle of the sentence. Anyway. I am rambling. It is late. For some reason I decided to record these late, which is stupid. I will not make that same mistake tomorrow. Until tomorrow, have a good one. If you haven't checked out my Monsters card review, it will be coming up very shortly after this one came out, so it might be out already, depending on when you watch this, or it will be out soon. So enjoy that. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoy the rest of the card reveals and me talking about them as if I really know anything about the game and how it works. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Holy shit, I'm tired. Why did I do this?